We have set the ball rolling for a new India. That's how Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman began her speech. And over the next 2 hours and 10 minutes, almost that's the longest budget speech that I've ever heard. Over the next 2 hours and 10 minutes, she went on to outline a slew of structural reforms that the Modi government envisions over the next 5 years to make India reach the 5 trillion economy aim, that is the stated vision of this NDA government. I'm joined by, of course, our tax experts here from Deloitte and from PwC. I want to talk about Rupak, Saha. I want to talk about the big takeaway that you guys have actually, and from this budget presented by Nirmala Sitharaman.
So let me go first. I think it's a practical budget. There was widespread recognition that there was limited headroom to bring down tax rates and so on. So within that, I think she has done the best while giving thrust to the government's focus areas, which is Make in India. I think she has responded adequately to the pains faced by certain sectors of the businesses, such as startups, such as NBFCs and so on. So I think overall, she has done a pretty good job. And to the 2-hour thing which you just said, I think to her credit, she actually touched upon really multiple sectors in the economy and in the larger society, if you will.
So that's tax partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Rupak Saha. Rupak gives kudos to the finance minister for covering all points and for walking the budget tightrope, as most articles have been calling it, the pre-budget articles, that she has a tightrope to walk and a fiscal tightrope, and there's no money, and growth is slowing and a lot needs to be done. What's your big takeaway from this budget?
I think it's a mixed bag, I would say. Nothing great for the common man. While anyone and everyone who watches this budget is watching with bated breath that what is going to be in store for them in terms of exemption, in terms of benefits. I think there is very limited what has come out insofar as benefits are concerned. I would say there is a lot of laying down of the roadmap for the next 5 years in terms of tax administration policies and mechanisms. For example, issues on how they're going to look at Aadhaar being interchanged with a PAN in filing of tax returns, centralized cell. So there is a lot of, talking on.
The one big thing, both of you are tax experts in your own rights, and the one big thing that I want to touch upon is, of course, what everybody actually is interested in most out of every budget is tax reliefs. So no tax relief for the middle class except for what was promised in February in the interim budget. But the rich...
Except for one. Let me quickly, interject.
Yes, sure.
So for affordable housing, up to, which is, if you buy a house, I think they set a date of 31st March 2020, you get another additional interest deduction of 1.5 lakhs.
1.5 lakhs
so from
on interest.
To another 1.5 lakhs.
So this is clearly, I don't know how the real estate market is going to benefit or not benefit from this. They would obviously benefit, but the state that the real estate market is in today, this will be a significant drop in the ocean. So as far, but largely, in your opinion, Nitin, what is the as far as the personal income tax is concerned, what is your big takeaway as far as the middle class is concerned? Because it's the same thing as what was promised in the interim budget. Can you just elaborate on that a little?
Not really. I mean, there's nothing that has come out for the common man, other than the point which Rupak was making. That's one. And then, talking about e-vehicles, that's another thing which is a new proposition that's come out where you buy e-vehicles, and so there's going to be a reduction of 1.5 lakhs which has been proposed.
Right.
One thing that was promised, and I just quickly read in the fine print, is that was NPS. NPS is something which a lot of common man invest in. So that was supposed to be exempted from 40 to 60%. I think that's come out in the fine print, and that's been promised and that's been delivered. So that's happened.
So I want to talk about more specifically, the electric vehicles thing that you promised, the e-vehicles. Yeah. So it's kind of settles the debate on e-vehicles once and for all, because the focus and the thrust seems to be on e-vehicles. And how do you think that's going to pan out over the next few years? Do you see a big boom in that sector now?
Looks like.
Well, I sometimes worry as to whether we have put the cart before the horse. I think we need to see how the infrastructure around e-vehicles, charging stations, batteries, and so on and so forth. And I think even the technology for e-vehicles, what type of batteries are to be used, those are yet pretty much up in the air. So I just have a tad worry as to whether the government has gone a little ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But on your first proposition about the middle class, I think enough was done by Mr. Jaitley in the interim budget on the middle class.
In this case, Mr. Piyush Goyal.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
I
No,
beg your pardon. Piyush Goyal. So I think all of that was already capitalized at that point in time. So there was not much for the.
There was no leeway.
Correct.
That and no room for.
I think
yeah.
ATC is a benefit which has been looked at for ages now. There has been no relief on that for a fairly long time.
Right.
Yeah. So that's not happened. And while we look at a common man, and when we say a common man, anyone who's at any particular level, as in the middle level, lower level, higher level, they are all making some level of investments by way of Provident Fund, Public Provident,
Right.
PPF or something. That was certainly expected. That 1.5 to at least 2 or 2.5 should go.
Or maybe there was even this whole proposal about making it a structured, a layered thing. That till 1.5 you give them so much of rebate, till 3 or till 2 you give them an additional rebate, and keep decreasing it over a thing. But and eventually all that money would have gone into government coffers only, because all the leeways and exemptions and all these schemes are mostly you funnel them back into government
you're
schemes.
absolutely right. In fact, even in the economic survey, there is a proposition that the savings has to be increased.
Right. And this was a great way. This was an
of
opportunity
incentives,
missed, that you believe that
Exactly.
the ATC exemption was not lifted or raised, or some changes made to it. Let's see. Let's hope that the next budget brings better news. And actually, even before that, now you don't really have to wait for the budget to hear major announcements.
One other last point is that this the super rich tax. I'm not too sure how much real revenue this generates. I think this is more of a political statement, or because if you see the latest statistics, the number of tax returns which is filed over 1 crore is less than 1 lakh.
Yeah.
So therefore, to ask for these, this can make good headlines, but in terms of real revenue augmentation, I'm not too sure how much these.
Whether the super rich, of course, the budget, one big theme and the one big headline that one is already reading, and you're right, it makes a good headline, that the middle class spared and the super rich taxed.
Right.
Great headline for the Modi government. But actually, on the ground, you're saying that it's not going to make much of a difference.
It's only
Do you
about
agree?
7% which gets increased. And Rupak is right. The number of people who are there are fairly limited. So we're talking about 7% and what's overall about lakh, which is fairly less. But then yes, it's going to make headline.
We talked about everything, but the most important thing we've not talked about, the cess on petrol and diesel. That 1 rupee or 2, which eventually would lead to a 2 rupee hike, probably we're talking here, and by the time you go out and get in your vehicle to go back home and want to fit a fill of fuel, you already will be paying rupees 2 per liter more on your fuel. On one hand, you're sparing the middle class, but on the other hand, you're also increasing the burden on the middle class, because fuel is a major cause of worry, and fuel prices over the last 5 years have been really at an all-time high.
Oh yes, absolutely. This is certainly going to pinch, because other than the fact that we as such sitting in our cars are going to be paying that, but while any and every commodity that gets delivered to us is being delivered through this,
Right.
and then it is going to have an impact on any and every damn thing which is there, because this is going to add up to our normal eatables, any consumption commodity.
But on that footing, maybe the Modi government is on a better footing, given that inflation is at an all-time low. So even if the costs go up a little and prices go up a little, it's not going to hit the government in that bad a way.
Yeah, this to me, I'll just put 2 points. Nitin is right. First, you can't castigate the current administration for this. This, in the past also, earlier administration has increased indirect taxes when the international fuel prices have gone down.
Right.
Conversely, when the international price of fuel goes really sharply up, they have also brought down some of these indirect taxes. So it is actually an effective hedge in terms of inflation, because, to Nitin's point, fuel price is such a thing that it sort of triggers, it has a big impact on inflation. And I think these taxes, whether it is levy or fresh levy or withdrawal at times, these are mechanisms which This is not the first dispensation which is doing it. Earlier they have doing it, and we have to get used to it.
So missed opportunity as far as ATC exemptions are concerned, relief for the middle class, tax burden increased for the super rich, but whether or not it will actually translate into more money in the coffers of the government remains to be seen. That seems to be the assessment of our tax experts there as far as the personal income tax is concerned in Nirmala Sitharaman's maiden budget 2019-2020. We'll come back to you with more updates. Keep watching HindustanTimes.com.